Hi, everyone. Happy New Year to you all. Hope you had a wonderful Christmas if you celebrate such things and are looking forward to 2024, which, as I've already mentioned, is going to be a very different year energetically, very fast moving, very dynamic. And at the 3D level, I think polarized, we are going to see a lot of volatility, I think, on many levels, whether that's increased seismic activity, the increased solar flares, human behavior. We're going to see it at many different levels. So, and I'm going to be talking about the potential antidote to that. So, and through this year, I want to, if I'm able to, start talking more about the bigger picture, the cosmology, the physics of the universe as I understand it. And I'm learning every week about this to try and put what we're going through into a much bigger context than just thinking our reality is defined by the nightly news, which it, as you know, it absolutely isn't. So, and what's driving a lot of this volatility is that the Earth, in fact, our entire solar system, round about every 12,000 years, give or take 500, moves through an area of space called the galactic current sheet. Rory Duff talks about this a lot in his work. Heather Emsworth has just referred to it in one of her latest brilliant updates. And it's where we move through a ripple in the galactic current sheet. And this ripple is really what is referred to as the photon belt. It's very concentrated, high frequency energy and light. And so despite appearances, what we're shown in the news, the Earth actually has more light on it than it has ever had before. But it's the light that is causing a lot of the volatility because it's creating dissolution, really, churn and turbulence at the lower levels, because you can't have two very different frequencies existing in the same place at the same time. And the higher frequency energy will always win over. And so that's one of the big reasons we're going through our experience right now. So it's partly the cosmology. It's also, frankly, that we have been able as humanity to raise our consciousness to a higher level, to start to access higher timelines and be able to embody more of this light that's pouring onto Earth for us. So that's another additional ingredient in our evolution. The other aspect of this that I'm going to be learning about and hopefully sharing with all of you is really extreme changes in the Earth's ionosphere. And this is partly caused by natural means. We are, as you know, going through this 11-year period of solar cycle 25 that I've referred to many times, that was supposed to peak in 2025. That date has now been pulled back into 2024. And so all of this incredible level of solar flares that have been coming in is going to get even higher in 2024. Now, that is kind of uncomfortable at the physical level. It can be quite destabilizing. We can get extreme insomnia, extreme fatigue, tinnitus, aches and pains, because there's no rehearsal for this. We are accelerating and evolving at great speed. The upside of it is this is bringing in new information from far galaxies, which is being assimilated in every cell of our body. So it's quite remarkable to think that the information from the far, the far reaches of space is actually affecting every cell in our body. It's affecting our biology. And that's quite remarkable, isn't it? The macrocosm and the microcosm, but that's because everything is connected and we are ultimately one consciousness. So I'm going to try and paint this bigger picture, as I say, as we go through this year, because I think it really does help us grasp the enormity of this paradigm shift that we're moving through. And what is very important, wherever you are at, it is very, very important, I would say, this year to develop a simple practice to find your center, find your anchor. So within seconds, it becomes your default method. And I've talked about this many times, whether it's bare feet on the earth, bare feet on the grass, whether it's candle gazing, whether it's breath work, or whether it's just literally shutting, more vigorous breath work, Wim Hof, um, potato breathing, that kind of thing, or whether it is simply shutting your eyes and just focusing 100% on dropping into the breath. You can imagine that you're breathing in and out through the heart. You can do the baby belly breath, where you just literally surrender, total focus on the breath. You surrender to the breath breathing you, just like a baby. So the breath goes even deeper then, and it is incredibly calming, not just emotionally, but also physiologically, because within moments you're reducing the cortisol in your blood and you're boosting your immune system. So find a way that for you becomes your default method. Whenever there's a really big scary thing, you can you can drop into that and say, no, I'm going to bring myself back to center because I am the creator of my reality. So that is super important wherever you are at. And um, don't be distracted this year if you can. There is going to be a higher level of potential distraction than we have ever known before. Partly because we have big planets like Pluto, also Jupiter moving into air signs. Later on, 25, 26, Uranus is going to be moving into Gemini and air sign as well. But even this year, we are going to feel that shift where things speed up. I'll be talking about Jupiter moving into Gemini in May, much more as we get closer. But there's a potential for scattering. As somebody brilliantly said, don't go down the scroll hole. Don't disappear into the kind of hours going by of spending time on social media. Is this the truth? Is this the truth? Is this the truth? You are the truth. You bring yourself back to you and your center, and that determines everything, not only in the inside out creation of your reality, but in your intuitive filter. What's right for you? That resonates. Nah, that's off. I'm trusting more and more when something feels just off. It's uncomfortable. That doesn't feel right. And start to trust that more and more, because this develops your intuition. You may be way more psychically sensitive than that, and have your guides, your angels, whoever, who give you helpful advice. But whatever level you are at, start to develop your own sense of higher guidance. Also, an analogy I used a couple of years ago that I think was helpful is we've all had the experience of taking off from an airport on a windy day. And there's a lot of turbulence on a windy day at the lower altitude. So as you're taking off, you may feel very buffeted by external forces, the turbulence in the air, and kind of knocked about a bit in the plane. And that can feel kind of scary, and that you're getting scattered in your energy. But once you pierce the cloud level and you get up to higher altitudes, you have a smoother ride. And so substitute altitude with frequency, because if we're at lower levels of frequency, we're going to feel very buffeted by external forces. As soon as we can raise our frequency, raise our consciousness, feel centered, feel anchored, easy ways to come back to self, then we will have a smoother ride. And I believe that analogy really holds strong. We will be bubble wrapped to a large extent if we can stay in those emotions of joy, peace, gratitude, appreciation, compassion, peace. And this brings about more coherence in our energy field, because when we're at lower frequencies, when we're scattered, we're distracted, we're scattered, it's like interference on a television set. We're leaking power. But once we can maintain, and it's a question of holding those high frequency emotions that I've just mentioned, we develop more coherence, more smoothness in the wave pattern, if you like. Our heart's toroidal field gets bigger, that feeds our brain's toroidal field. Everything becomes more coherent in our energy system. And not only is that fantastic for your health, and boosts your immune system and your health, but you're infecting other people with that level of coherence and love and light, by the way. So the more we can do this, everything starts to work. So you may still witness and be aware of much turbulence happening in our old world, but you are not so directly personally affected by it. We may not be completely immune, but we are kind of, as I say, bubble wrap. We're one step back from a lot of the extreme volatility that I think we're going to go through, which is very productive for our evolution. Remember the big upside to this. So yes, we are going to see in 2024 a much more obvious collapse of the old order. That will be more and more obvious as we move through, and it may even be more obvious in the second half of the year, through September to November, when Pluto does its final backtrack into Capricorn before it fully moves into Aquarius on the 20th of November for 20 years. But the only way that we can navigate out of this challenging time, I believe, is via our frequency. I don't believe there's any other way to do it than via our frequency, because consciousness is primary. Everything begins with your consciousness and your frequency. That's the foundation of everything. And so I'm gonna keep on banging this drum, and I hope to be filming another video sometime in January where I try and explain this concept a little more fully. But anyway, this video is about the first half of January and the new moon that we have coming up in Capricorn. So I'm going to be moving on to that in just a moment. But just to say that as we launch into 2024, we've had Jupiter moving stationary direct on the 30th. And whenever a planet moves stationary direct, its symbolism is amplified. So there's a feeling of optimism, hope, future vision. This is potentially very positive to launch us into 2024. Now, yes, it's going stationary direct at 5 degrees of Taurus, which is exactly where the lunar eclipse was, the 28th of October. That is the financial axis, Taurus Scorpio. So something may be blown up, something may become bigger around that time, but nevertheless, I still believe that will have a very positive and optimistic upside. A couple of days after that, on the 2nd of January, Mercury moves stationary direct at 22 of Sagittarius, and that only leaves dwarf planet Eris to move stationary direct on the 11th, and then Uranus stationary direct on the 27th of the month, and then all planets will be moving direct until May. So there's this feeling of clarity, of momentum, and I'd really suggest, if you can, in this first half of January, to kind of get your ducks in a row for where you want to go in 2024, even if that's just a feeling of, I want to feel more love in my life, I want to feel more joy in my life, I want to be of greater service in my life, whatever it is. Try and develop a clear vision, because it's going to be kind of moving very fast after this. So from the second, really mid-January onwards. So, but very hopeful for our futures. Don't forget that Mars is out of bounds beyond the normal 23 degrees north or south of the ecliptic until the 23rd of January. Now, whenever planets are out of bounds, technically it means they can express in a more extreme or out of control way. This is Mars, god of war. So we may see some, war drums beating. Stay in peace. Remember, we are the co-creators. Stay in peace. The more of us stay in peace, the greater chance we will have that will prevail. Couldn't say that more loudly. Going to keep on saying it. So Mars is also conjunct the galactic center 27 of Sagittarius on the 1st of January. And that's wonderful because whenever planets, and by the way, I've mentioned this before, but if you have any natal planets conjunct the galactic center, 26, 27 of Sagittarius, you are usually very sensitive to energy, may work with energy. But when planets align with it in transit, as we have on the first of the year, then we've kind of got a hotline. We've got a direct line to what some people refer to as the cosmic mind. This is the source of much of our plasma with which we create our world. So that's very positive too. So as I've just mentioned, on the 11th of the month, we have Eris moving stationary direct at 24 of Aries. And I know some new people may be watching these videos. So just to explain that Eris is a dwarf planet far out in space with a very long orbit of 556 years. It is the warrior sister of Mars, very much an archetype that stands for truth, for justice, for a fairer society, for equality. It fights against elitism. And so that symbolism is magnified around the 11th, several days to either side. 11th is also the day when the moon comes to conjunct Pluto. Whenever we have hard aspects between the moon and Pluto, we have people, the moon, feeling intense, extreme emotions, feeling intense. So there could be something around the 11th of January that comes out as a truth. I think it's going to be flooding out, frankly, in 2024, that makes people feel very intense and makes them want to demand more truth, more justice, more fairness. Pluto is at 29 degrees of Capricorn until it shifts into Aquarius or re-enters Aquarius on the 20th of the month. The 29th degree of any sign is known as the anaretic degree, and that's the degree area where it is likely that the shadow side, the less positive side of that sign will manifest. So Capricorn is very much about top-down power, top-down control. So Pluto is going to be at that 29 degrees of Capricorn in January, September, October, and November. So as the old order collapses, which inevitably it's going to do, because that's where the astrology is going, there may be more attempted extreme efforts to retaining that top-down control and power. And be aware of that and be prepared to come back to your center, stay in peace, and create a more peaceful, loving world from the inside out. More corruption is likely to be revealed as well. I mean, that's really the purpose of Pluto moving through any sign. It reveals the corruption of the sign it's moving through. So isn't it interesting that it entered Capricorn in 2008? And what did we have in 2008? I mean, everybody knows it's the financial crisis, because Capricorn is also linked to big business and banking, stock market. It's interesting, it was at the anaretic degree, 29 degrees of the sign in June of 2023. And just from a UK perspective, that is when, for instance, if we're talking about revealing corruption, our former Prime Minister Boris Johnson was forced to resign over the alleged Partygate affair. And what Partygate was about, there were very, very strict rules for the UK population around social distancing and not being able to visit, sick aged parents in hospital or nursing homes, etc. But allegedly there were parties taking place in parliamentary buildings, etc. So he was forced to resign over that. Also, Nicola Sturgeon, who was then almost like the Scottish Prime Minister, Scottish First Minister, was forced to resign over alleged financial misconduct. So Pluto will dig deep, and it doesn't have long to go, as I say, in the last couple of degrees of Capricorn. It only has January, September, October, and November. So these are going to be very interesting months for any corruption being revealed. So let us look now at the new moon in Capricorn. So I'm going to share my screen here. So I hope you can all see that. So this is happening at on the 11th of the year. It's happening at 3:58 a.m. Pacific and 11:58 a.m. UK time, so almost noon. Now, a new moon happens when the sun and moon are conjunct. So here they are at 20 degrees 44 of Capricorn. Now, all through 2023, and I said it so many times, we had Pluto in a T-square to the nodal axis. Remember, the south node is always directly opposite the north node. So the south node is at 20 degrees of Libra. It's not usually shown in a chart. So Pluto was in a T-square. It was in a tight T-square all through 2023. And I talked many times about how this was a massive year, 2023, of individual and collective choice. Are you operating as a victim or co-creator? Are you operating out of fear or love? You have to choose your end, if you like, of that axis, one way or another. 2023 was the year that we made our choices because Pluto has now moved off that T-square. It's at 29 degrees and the nodal axis is at 20 degrees. So it's already moving away. However, this new moon has replaced Pluto, if you like, in that tight T-square. 20 degrees of Capricorn, 20 degrees of Aries Libra. So what this says to me is, particularly because this is the new moon in Capricorn, this is, see where 20 degrees of Capricorn falls in your chart. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can download a free birth chart from my website, go to the link below this video and get a two-part video series that will explain from zero how you find these points in your chart and what my updates mean for you. This is not a personalized birth chart. These are teaching videos, so to help you how you find these points in your chart so you can begin your astrological journey yourself. So don't forget to set a new intention at this time for what new seed you want to plant. But particularly now you have made your choices, this is the time to plant your seed for the long term, Capricorn, ruled by Saturn, strategically and for the long term in terms of what you want to build in 2024. What do you want to build from having made your choices? Fear or love, victim or co-creator? Where are you going to go with this? I think that's really interesting. What's also interesting, 20 degrees of Capricorn is awfully close to the 22 degrees of that huge, hugely important conjunction between Saturn and Pluto on the 12th of January 2020, and I mean 2020, which started off the whole pandemic. That big theme historically, Saturn-Pluto conjunctions, particularly in Capricorn, is around abuse of power. And so here we almost have an echo of that. Hopefully we're not going to have an echo in terms of anything being resurrected from that time, but an echo perhaps of how far we've come. Look back to the beginning of 2020 and say to yourself, how far have we come? How far have you come in your learning, your understanding, your reactions, your understanding of how we create our reality over those last 3 years? How far have you come? Very important, I think, to consider. So issues of power are going to be writ large all of this year. Now, yes, there's a conjunction between Pluto and this new moon. It's pretty wide, to be honest, but nevertheless, issues of power will come up very strongly for all kinds of astrological and very obvious reasons, I think. Very positively, the new moon is tightly trying to Uranus. Uranus is the planet of the future. It's about truth. Again, it's about vision. It's about greater equality. It's about connecting to higher mind, but also connecting to higher beings. And we're going to see a lot of that, I believe, in 2024. So it's very inspiring. A lot of innovation is going to come our way in 2024 at speed. What is also lovely is that we have a trine between Mars and Jupiter, an exact by degree trine. And this is enthusiasm to really start building something. I always think of Mars Jupiter positive aspects as kind of crusading aspects, you know, with enthusiasm. We've decided what we want to do and leaping on our horses and off we go. And it's again about building, because these are both in earth signs, Taurus, Capricorn. What are we going to build for the long term? And I think what is very exciting as well, and I love working with these dwarf planets. I'm going to be speaking again to Alan Clay, who is a brilliant teacher. He runs the Dwarf Planet University to teach people about these planets. And we're going to be having a conversation in early February about some more of these dwarf planets. Ixion, and I'm going to get, again, I love Alan Clay's words with this. Mars is going to energize the archetype of the dwarf planet Ixion. Alan Clay refers to Ixion as the wild child, and asks the question, are the rules we are playing by the right ones? I suggest that strengthened further because it's in Capricorn. So, and in a negative expression, Ixion can have no moral compass. In the myth, Ixion murdered his father-in-law and was eventually spun off on a burning wheel into eternity. But nevertheless, in its very positive aspect, it's about going your own way and finding joy through simplicity. Going your own way and finding joy through simplicity. And I think many of us will be following a simple path, an individual path, really streamlining life to make everything very simple. Mercury is conjunct the galactic center here, 27 degrees of Sagittarius. It's also conjunct the dwarf planet Vada. So again, this is kind of, as Mars was on the very first day of the year, Mercury, the messenger, the mind, is here aligning with the cosmic mind, with a higher mind, and able to bring down downloads and insights from the galactic center. So many of you will be really experiencing that. And again, for any new viewers, Vada in myth, she's very much part of the creation myth with her husband Vada. Tolkien writes about Vada and Manwë in his book Silmarillion. Vada was responsible for placing the sun and moon and the stars in the sky and setting them on their course. And that conjunction between the galactic center and Vada continues all through this year, 2024, and is very, very propitious for building new Earth, because she created the cosmos the first time around with her husband. She is a great symbol for building new Earth. So wonderful. Also, we have Mercury in trine to Eris. Eris is just falling off here at 24 degrees of Aries, and see that, remember that Eris is going to be stationary direct at this new moon. And Mercury is also in a little wider trine to the North Node, but certainly trine to Eris, and the new moon is square to the North Node and Eris. So both of those are saying the North Node is our collective soul's path of future growth. It's what we are being encouraged to follow or to do in action, or archetype, if you like. And the fact that the North Node is conjunct Eris and has been all through 2023 is encouraging this collective push towards finding truth, finding justice, finding greater fairness, finding greater equality, not accepting elitism. And that's reinforcing all that I've been saying about Pluto moving through these last couple of degrees of Capricorn. It's all the same thing being reinforced again, but the North Node is very clear on this is the way that the cosmos, Great Spirit, divine intelligence wants us to move in our future. Super clear and super positive. Also, we have a very nice sextile here between Saturn and Jupiter, 4 degrees of Pisces, 5 degrees of Taurus. Not a major aspect, but it's a very positive one. It's a very supportive one. And this is very nice for stability with all of the instability and volatility that's going on. And it's very good for building businesses, I would say, particularly anything connected to water, connected to the earth, connected to new financial arrangements. And this sextile can grow into something bigger as we move through 2024. Another aspect to pick up, I'm going to be talking to Alan Clay about this in February, is there's a dwarf planet called Gong Gong or Gon Kun. It's pronounced at almost 5 degrees of 4 degrees of Pisces. That is conjunct Saturn and will be conjunct Saturn until early February, till Saturn starts to move off. And Alan Clay described this as a feeling of overwhelm and restriction. Saturn is the restriction. Gong Kun in myth was the Chinese water god, and very much linked to flooding, when things become overwhelming with flooding. And Alan Clay is saying that we can't just restrict it, Saturn, we can't just dam it using dams. We have to in some way channel it. And in fact, in myth, Gong Kun became a master irrigator of these enormous amounts of water. But what Alan is also saying is Gong Kun is not just linked to water, he feels, but it's picking up on a lot of the huge amounts of psychic and emotional energy coming into us at the moment and channeling them appropriately. Now, that is something I really want to talk to him about because I think it connects to what's happening with the ionosphere, what's happening with the physics as well. And the solar flares. So that's a discussion to be continued. So yes, I want to take that further in understanding Gong Kun. But be aware that it's linked to flooding. Of course, Saturn in Pisces. Pisces is the sign most linked to flooding. So this could be linked to physical flooding, but I think it's a more feeling of psychic overload at times. So remember, go back to your center, go back to your breath, go back to your heart. Dwarf planet Sedna, just squeezing in here, is at 29 degrees of Taurus, exactly trine to Pluto. These two are going to be in a dance all through 2024, even when they both move into air signs. Pluto moves into Aquarius, Sedna moves into Gemini. They're going to be in that very supportive trine. This has very strong themes around betrayal by the patriarchy. Does very strong themes about transformation and even metamorphosis. Remember when Sedna was trying to climb back into the canoe in the storm, her father chopped her fingers off. That really is betrayal by the patriarchy. But in surrendering the security of the boat, so this is big time, both Pluto and Capricorn and Sedna in Taurus particularly is about surrendering the old forms of safety and security, just releasing and trusting to the invisible, and then transforming, metamorphosizing, if you like, because Sedna then turned into, in her death, in her dive down to the deep, turned into beautiful sea creatures of turtles and whales and beautiful hitherto unknown sea creatures. And this is the kind of level of transformation we are going to be going through. If any of you saw my second conversation with Nancy Rebecca, the blue light beings were talking about this isn't just a transformation, it is a complete metamorphosis for humanity. And with all that's going on, that's very clear, I think. I'm going to stop sharing screen here. And just the other thing to pick up in this first half of January, on the 13th, we have the moon square to Uranus. That's a repeating aspect, but that's an aspect of rebellion. It's quite revolutionary. Venus is quincunx Uranus, so again, another Uranus aspect, and the Sun is square to Eris. So some uppity, feisty, rebellious energies coming in that really set the scene for the second half of January, when Pluto re-enters Aquarius, ruled by Uranus, and Uranus is very strong, stationary direct on the 27th of the month. I'll be talking at much greater length about those in the next video. There's going to be so much for me to say this year. The astrology is jam-packed this year. So it really is going to be whitewater rafting in so many ways for us, but it is exciting. And be flexible. You know, I talked in my last update about entering 2024 with a really positive view, a positive vision of possibility, opportunity, connections with people. We are going to be connecting with people all over the world in our family of frequency to make miracles happen, to make miracles happen. And even though in those really simple 15-minute meditations that I suggested on a Sunday evening, 7 o'clock UK time, no Zoom links, no notifications. You just imagine that you're coming together and holding hands across the world. And you know, people are having such rich experiences with that, all for free, all just imagining this connection. But that's how it works. And that momentum is building and building. We are helping to create a tsunami of love and a much more loving new earth. We are playing our part. All of you watching this, because there's a connection via these videos, you are inevitably on a similar frequency. And just by that simple 15 minutes once a week, you can do it more often if you like, but we are part of altering the quantum wave structure, altering the collective frequency to bring in a more loving new earth. And it's fabulous to feel that sense of empowerment and co-creation. Be flexible, be light of foot, leave the old stale behind, all the deadening things, the routine things, the things that have held you back. Be open to these new connections, possibilities, and opportunities. They're going to come in really fast. The future is more invisible than we have ever known it. It's always invisible, but even more invisible right now. The canvas is completely blank because the energy is so churned up. In the Western world, particularly for most of our lifetimes, we've lived in a relatively stable paradigm, in long-term structures, a certain predictability to our lives in many ways. That's all going to change. That's why, with the churn in the energy up to higher frequencies, the future is even more invisible. Nothing is set. You know, the blancmange hasn't set yet. It's still in liquid form, if you like. And that's what is very empowering for us as co-creators, to create the loving new earth that's filled with peace, compassion, joy, abundance, sense of oneness, sense of connection to all living beings, and a very different world to live in. I'm going to keep on banging that drum for as long as I do these videos. So God bless. Thank you so much for being on this ride of our lives, and really appreciate you so much. Really appreciate your loving thoughts, your care, and it really is treasured and very precious to me. So thank you so much. And remember, just keep your vision. Imagine the being that you want to be by the end of 2024, because you'll probably exceed that anyway. And remember, we are empowered co-creators. God bless. Thank you so much for listening. Bye for now, and I'll be back very soon with another video.